The Scots, well, who's like us? Over the last 100 years, film has played a central role in creating a global image of the Scots. So what stories have these films told the world about us? And what can these characters teach us about ourselves? And which of our on-screen traits have a whiff of truth? And which deserve to be pure boiled up in a sheep's stomach and fed to the Loch Ness Monster?
Doesn't it make you proud to be Scottish?
It's great being Scottish. The most contented, cheerful, generous, gregarious, sober, assertive group ever begat into civilization. Some people like the English. Well, so do I. But the Scots, well, who's like us? Tonight, I'm inviting you to quit your cringing jock and join me, friends, as we take a look at how the Scottish soul has been projected to the world. The good,
there's no stopping me now.
The bad, and the glorious of Scottish stereotypes.
You want my boy? I'm giving a bet.
Because, as the old toast kind of goes, what's like us? Damn few indeed, and they're all fictional, which is probably just as well. Scotland has been doing a lot of national soul-searching recently, trying to figure out who we really are.
This isn't some parts of the country. This is Scotland, by Christ!
Luckily, movies have been giving us sweet and salty answers for years. So if you only knew the Scots from how we've been shown on screen, what would be your first impressions?
So you want some words?
What's this area famous for?
Some really dark humour.
Drunks.
Muggles.
Multiple social deprivation.
Drunken, brawling.
Loud, drunken, ginger.
I'm so drunk I can barely see.
Unintelligible.
I'm as good as you are, bad as I am.
Am I painting us really well?
Us miserable sinners.
Douce and very repressed.
There'll be no church for you in Snarthig today.
Surly. Aggressive.
Oh!
Behave yourself. Tight.
Can you be a fish stopper? Get off!
Parochial, sort of tartan tree.
Could you tell us where we could buy the local inn?
Lots of swearing.
Shite.
Look it off.
Get it!
Doer, mean and have.
That is the stuff I am made of.
What a bonniness.
But should we even care about how we're portrayed in film? I mean, they're just movies, aren't they?
Amongst the islands of the Scottish Hebrides lies the tiny Isle of Beg, an isolated community without any of the advantages of modern civilization. Without even television.
Everybody wants their culture and their country portrayed in a certain way that is something you're proud of or something that makes you laugh or is recognisable, because it's a calling card for the world.
And stereotypes can be dangerous if misused, as illustrated in this terrifying Monty Python sketch.
Read all about it. Read all about it.
You did always watch Dr. Finlay on the television.
Well, you see, Scottishness starts with little things like that and works up. You see, people don't just turn into a Scotsman for no reason at all. No further questions?
If the past is a foreign country, it seems that for many people, that country is Scotland. Many early depictions of Scotland the movie feature Bonnie Prince Charlie. Kilts, tartan and Highland mountains all looked glorious in Technicolor.
Fellow Scotsmen, here is my sword. God defend Scotland! The Highlands are on the march!
Unfortunately, audiences in 1948 proved less willing to march to cinemas to see David Niven's attempts in the role. But Hollywood still loved its Scottish heroes, especially when you had Robert Louis Stevenson providing the source material.
45, Bonnie Prince Charlie, the Stuart heir, has landed on the shores of his homeland.
The Master of Ballantrae features a swashbuckling Errol Flynn. Look at him swashing his buckles. although you suspect he didn't fight quite as hard in his attempts to master the Scottish accent.
I'm afraid Mr. Bally doesn't care much for talk. He believes in action.
That's a Scottish trait, isn't it, Mr. Bally? Yes. There have been some who wished it otherwise, sir. King George, for instance.
Yeah, King George. Yeah. The same year as Rob Roy, the Highland Rogue, is full of the type of Scotticisms which are fast becoming almost compulsory. Highland coups, check. Berserker pipers, check. Swashbuckling hunks of masculinity. One stereotype which is obviously completely true. Aye, as superhero costumes go, the kilt is pretty tidy-like. Albeit, our superpower often seems to be losing in the most glorious way possible.
The men are coming home.
Aye, but some are not.
We do tend to get a wee bit sentimental in Scotland over our history in particular. When I was a kid and saw films like Bonnie Prince Charlie and Rob Roy, we were all at the playground fighting the dastardly English. And if I could be anybody else, I'd love to be this character, Alan Breck from Kidnapped.
Why am I not a bunny fighter?
The truth is, it wasn't quite the way that history is in the movies. But hey, you know, as Mark Twain said, never let the facts stand in the way of a good story. So I'll go with that. I'll go with the movie history.
It's my opinion that the choice of the field for us is suicidal.
The first thing my men will find when they do awake is the enemy on them, cutting their throats.
In 1964, a groundbreaking television film, Culloden, questioned these national myths, showing just how unglorious the reality had been.
Damn the wee fool. Scatter into the mist. Find your own way home.
But the appeal of rugged men showing off their knobbly knees never went away. In the mid-90s, Liam Neeson cut a dash as Rob Roy.
There they are!
The honest Highlander fighting for his rights against corrupt aristocrats. Well, who wouldn't want the Scots to win? Especially when all the English characters look like Captain Hook and act like dastardly pirates while they're at it.
Oh, well. The great McGregor. Come to hand at last.
You can think of these films as basically Scottish westerns, which of course would make the Scots the Indians. Now, as a McCauley, that makes a lot of sense to me. Slush.
Here are Scotland's terms. Lower your flags and march straight back to England, stopping at every home you pass by to beg forgiveness for 100 years of theft, rape and murder.
These films have come to represent Scotland the brand as much as Scotland the brave. And few of them loom larger than the biopic of old Blueface, with its mix of stirring speeches, bloodthirsty battles, and dodgy history.
There's something about an uprising that fails, a noble cause that, you know, failed at the last hurdle, and a failed rebellion becomes romantic.
They fought like Scotsmen and won their freedom.
All of that mythology accrues around Scotland, and I think that's why people get so attached to the Highlander myth.
The prisoner wishes to say a word.
For many, this was indeed Scotland, forever and ever and ever and ever.
We're now arriving at Loch Ness Castle, the fortress of Black Jack Randall, where Jamie comes to rescue Clare.
The international appeal of these historical epics means that film and TV tourism draws thousands of people to Scotland every year. Oh, look, there's some now. Hiya! Great. Tourist. Hello, everyone. I am Sanjeev Kohli of the Clan Kohli. Welcome to the seat of the Clan Kohli. Can I just ask you all, what are you doing here?
We're here for the Outlander tour.
What's an outlander?
Jamie.
I'll thank you to take your hands off my wife.
Outlander is, of course, the biggest drama in production in Scotland today. The series tells the story of Clare, who falls through a vortex in time to 1743 and, very handily, takes us back to the most romantic, scenic and bloody time of Scottish history, full of rousing battles, arousing love scenes, and shinty.
Some of us even moved here.
For Outlander?
For Outlander.
And the love of Scotland.
And the love of Scotland.
Wow.
It's something about that knee porn.
Something catch your eye there, lass.
What about Jamie?
Outlander author Diana Gabaldon wrote the first book before she ever set foot in Scotland, having been inspired by an episode of Doctor Who, also starring a hero called Jamie.
Try to murder him a criminal, would you? Well, I'll show you! Cregan, do it!
My heart's in the Highlands! My heart is not here! My heart's in the Highlands, chasing the deer!
In the film Mrs. Brown, Billy Connolly plays a Highlander,
Lift your foot, woman.
offering his own unique brand of bereavement counselling to Judi Dench's Queen Victoria.
He really was playing on Queen Victoria's ludicrous sense of romanticising the Highlands, because he's just lording it over the rest of the servants.
I'm Her Majesty's Highland servant! Indoors and out. There's no stopping me now.
Yet even when taking orders, we still manage to show a rebellious streak.
Charlie doesn't take cream in his coffee. That's very sophisticated, isn't it?
Alec Guinness did his best to be both a rebel and a bully in Tunes of Glory.
Is that no sophisticated?
Not especially, I shouldn't have thought.
Not especially, I shouldn't have thought. Yeah, actually, in point of fact, if you know what I mean, old boy.
In The Great Escape, Ives uses his time locked up in the cooler with Steve McQueen to dispense girl advice.
Oh, they were the days. Some of these Saturday nights in towns like Musselburgh and Hamilton. You'd to fight off the birds. You know, birds. Girls, man. Girls. You know of them in the States?
The first time I identified a Scottish person in film was Ives in The Great Escape. He kept kind of making life hard for the Nazis and trying to escape. At the end, after the Nazis discovered the first tunnel, it's as if all hope is gone. He just cracks up. And he goes towards the fence and gets shot to bits. And Steve McQueen tries to save him, but it's too late.
Who's running this army? You or me? Right. Now get to work, and don't let me see a speck when I get back. Leather puss.
The first Scot I saw was probably James Finlayson. And he was a foil for Laurel and Hardy. He was a master of the double take. And he was this frustrated, angry Scot.
James Finlayson would inspire Homer Simpson's famous catchphrase. But he's not the only Scottish presence in The Simpsons. In a possibly fictional poll, Americans were asked which Scottish character they most identified with Scottish traits. The winner? Groundskeeper Willie. It seems that too often our passion is mistaken for aggression. I mean, maybe Willie just really likes gardening. Grow!
Bonjour, you cheese-eating surrender monkeys!
You offset him against the sort of prim and proper Principal Skinner. You know, there becomes this brilliant sort of double act between the both of them.
But I
brothers and sisters are natural enemies, like Englishmen and Scots, or Welshmen and Scots, or Japanese and Scots, or Scots and other Scots. Damn Scots! They ruined Scotland!
You Scots sure are a contentious people.
You just made an enemy for life! Not so fast, boyo! Well, if it was up to me, I'd let you go. But the lads have a temper, and they've been drinking all day!
Some Scottish stereotypes are irresistible, and the angry Scotsman, pure gold.
What are you doing in my swamp?
Some of the most famous Scottish on-screen characters tend to lose the heat in pretty spectacular fashion.
Jamie! The crossest man in Scotland.
How do you make Malcolm Tucker even more scary to the English civil servants he works with?
This is Toby.
Give him a sidekick who's equally angry and equally Scottish.
Very, very pleased to meet you. Please sit down. Now, right, that's enough of all the Oxbridge pleasantries.
What's Oxbridge about saying hello?
Shut it! Love Actually! You want me to hole punch your face?
In The Last King of Scotland, James McAvoy's impatience leads to a potentially ugly confrontation with Forrest Whitaker's Idi Amin.
You are British.
Well, I'm Scottish. Yeah, I'm Scottish.
Scottish?
Yeah.
Why didn't you say so? I fought with the Scots against the Mau Mau. Great soldiers. Could you let me have this T-shirt?
Just as well he'd packed his Scotland top, eh? Tarps off.
Thank you.
Scots on screen were often depicted as living simple lives in far-flung corners, often battling against the intrusions of modern society, as well as the elements, but never the midges for some reason.
Year by year, the population's shrinking. Look what happened to Mingulay and St Kilda. Islands barren now that once bore a people. It's every man for himself.
One of the great early Scottish films which I really like is Michael Powell's The Edge of the World, which is set on a supposed St Kilda, and it's about the clearance of St Kilda in the 1930s and the decisions they make to go. And it's a brilliant naturalistic portrait of Scotland.
Don't worry about me. I know where I'm going.
I know where I'm going, and I know who's going with me. I know who I love, but the dear knows who I'll marry.
The Powell and Pressburger film, I Know Where I'm Going, stars Wendy Hiller on her way to the Hebrides to marry a rich industrialist. But, quelle surprise.
How long will the gale last? Oh, just as long as the wind blows, my lady.
Bad weather interrupts her travel plans. As do the charming locals on the Isle of Mull, forcing her to have second thoughts.
Do you think you could dance the Scottish?
I think so.
Good.
I suppose we ought to go back now.
Oh, no hurry.
Maccabee, round Loch of Yawnin. Maccabee, round Loch of Yawnin. Maccabee, round Loch of Yawnin. Here and next to me, the cows are in the corn. Wishing, Barry Bamacree, looking far away to sea. Home the birds, Barry Bamacree, and home come the bonny lads of here, oh ye.
There is no whiskey.
Perhaps the most famous portrayal of wily islanders is Whisky Galore.
Whisky. Uscaba. In Gaelic, they call it the water of life. And to a true islander, life without it is not worth living.
The film drew on real-life events and tells of how the islanders of Toddy are saved from a disastrous whisky drought when a government supply ship is washed onto the rocks, laden with the motherlode.
50,000 cases of whiskey.
The film portrays the canny islanders outwitting the English officer supposedly in charge. It remains one of the most loved Scottish films of all time and has just been remade.
Quite a lot of the elements of early 20th century Scottish stereotype are present and correct.
Now, who would be saying a thing like that?
The slightly drunk, slightly unruly local. The figures who are magically cut adrift or don't seem to respect at all the conventions of how we live in the modern world.
I don't understand what you're saying.
It's a pity you haven't the Gaelic.
But I think as viewers, we're also very aware that they know that they're playing a stereotype. They're not the joke, they're in on the joke, and the joke's been played on someone else.
In America, the film Whisky Galore was released as Tight Little Island. A bit racist. But in France, it was called Whisky a Go-Go. Proof that everything sounds cooler in French, even the Scottish. Not that Orson Welles' Laird in Trouble in the Glen would have agreed.
This is Glen Ecken, and we're high in the Highlands, or Heelands, in an area infested with tribes of hostile savages known as Scotsmen, and situated a good many degrees north of civilization.
The Scots are often portrayed as a parochial lot, fighting against the big bad world. Kailyard might sound like an overpriced hipster cafe, but it's become shorthand for how Scotland was represented to the rest of the world for many years.
Your young people have got no entertainment, not a cinema for miles. What sort of life is that, my friends, to be living in the present century?
Oh, it's a terrible picture he's painting.
I'm afraid that in your present mode of life, you're not an asset to Great Britain. You're a liability.
Kailyard referred to images of Scotland that portrayed it as parochial.
Now, don't forget to wear your black watch kilt.
No, Mum.
And don't leave off your underwear until it's really hot.
No, Mum.
Cut off from the modern world, small town.
I've never left home before. I've never been further than Perth. And I did not like Perth.
Hapless lads, winsome lassies.
You know, you've got to go to the mainland to find out what's happening to us here on these islands.
Well, now, I've been living in Beg all my life, and I can't recollect anything happening here, whatever.
They certainly weren't something which you could recognise yourself in.
She must know about cows, chickens, and children. Yes. No English, Irish, or Welsh girls. And no widows.
One film above all has become shorthand for images of a bonny Scotland stuck in the past. What's that, Simon Callow?
It's Brigadoon! It's bloody Brigadoon!
Now, there was a Scottish cliché from Hollywood, wasn't it? That was... but I remember just loving it. And not... Because I was a kid, you know, so I didn't feel, don't patronise me, you know, in that sense. Because it was a beautiful musical.
Salt and meat and salad there at the square, laddie.
Brigadoon tells the story of a Highland village magically sent into collective slumber and awoken 200 years later with the arrival of 2 American tourists.
Look at that. What do you know? It looks like a village.
I don't think I've ever in my life seen Brigadoon. I think I was beginning to see it at one point in a hotel, and it just made me feel slightly ill.
Go home with Bonnie Jean.
I will not have a word against it. This is the most perfect musical ever. What is local hero if it isn't Brigadoon? It's the same thing. It's giving up the modern world to step back into this beautiful idea of romantic Scotland, which I think is still there somewhere.
1983's Local Hero shows American oil executives meeting wily Scottish locals and becoming slowly enlightened by their wisdom.
I wanted to talk to you. Would you give me a £1 note for every grain of sand I hold in my hand? Now, you can have the beach for that. There. Saved you £1 or 2, eh?
When you had Fulton Mackay with the grains of sand, there was some kind of sense that maybe crazy old blokes who were Scottish might know something.
Quiet, please, everyone. Murdo wants to say a short prayer.
Lord.
It's the Yank and the other one. They're coming across to the church. I saw them. Quiet, please, everyone. Murdo, can you deal with them?
Oh, God.
Just head them off.
That film absolutely came out from those early 40s, 50s movies, but gave it a contemporary spin.
What was it Gordon Urquhart offered you?
$1.5 million in cash, plus 2% of the relocation fund, and a share in the oil field revenue.
Right, strange times, strange times.
Ah, Ushkave, the water of life.
You'll take a wee sensation before you go, Father.
There stands the glass.
Right away.
That will ease all my pain.
I can die content.
It's my first one to take.
When I finish this whiskey.
There stands the glass.
Whiskey for the gentlemen that like it, and for the gentlemen that don't like it, whiskey.
You'll take a dram, it's the moon still.
What is it?
Whiskey, you strayed lamb. How does it taste?
Mother's milk.
You're in my eyes, you're in my dreams. You're Celtic, United on, baby. I've decided you're the best thing that's happened to me.
Some of them are blitz and stupid, some of them I lean up.
There stands the glass.
Quite often it seems that a wee dram is employed to sharpen the wits, despite all evidence to the contrary. Breaking down boundaries, allowing us to access innate truths.
I'm as good as you are, bad as I am.
You could almost forget that binge drinking has its downsides.
Oh, that's Morgan.
Some of the most memorable scenes featuring Scottish characters, young and old, have inevitably involved a bevy. Or 7.
When I think of Scotland, I think Buckfast, I think out clubbing, people strewn across the street, unable to walk home because they're completely incapacitated.
As you say.
There probably is some basis for the drunken Scots. We love a party, and sometimes that party gets a little bit out of control.
There's a movie called Illusionist, and the Lord has put on this show for everyone. But he's really positive. Hi there. And then the minute he picks a drink up, he goes, hey. Hi. He starts smiling as if, I've got another drink and I'm off.
Does any man here desire to be consumed by drunkenness?
If you're referring to me, Minister, I'd rather consume the drink.
I'll step down from the pulpit and run you out of the house of God, you hulking man of sin.
But this is Scotland. You can't have a good time without consequences. For every party, there's a hangover. Or, as it's called in Scotland, Calvinism. The more straight-laced side of our national personality means that we're often shown as a slightly dour bunch.
Singing, dancing, drinking, and all the vile and evil uses of the flesh.
And few Scottish actors nailed that particular character trait quite like John Laurie.
The wicked shall be destroyed. This daughter of a rich man in her devilry defied the most sacred laws of God and man. She dresses in purple and fine linen, but her heart is black, black with sin. Vengeance is mine, said the Lord, and the retribution will be just.
Whether in Dad's Army,
We're doomed, doomed.
Or the 39 Steps.
You ought not to say that.
What ought he not to say?
You've got a very well-spoken, soft-eyed English lady doing a very bizarre accent, pretending to be Scottish, but her husband, who's genuinely Scottish, because he's nasty, is Bible-thumping, mean.
Sanctify these bounteous mercies to us miserable sinners.
Religion and repressed feelings in rural Scotland also feature in The Brothers, telling the story of two families, the McFarishes and the McRaes, who failed to share much brotherly love.
I think there's a feeling that even if you have a sunny day, we will pay for it later.
Let you be accursed and finally drowned in the stinking cesspool of your own degeneracy.
But has managed to create a strength of character in Scots, I think, that's probably taken us around the world and done some amazing things.
Be you accursed before me, from your firstborn to your lastborn.
We can't completely diss it. There's merit in being doer sometimes.
I tell you, she is evil, and evil breeds evil in those who meet it.
If there's one man who could outdo John Laurie, it has to be Duncan McRae.
We see Duncan McRae in something like Whisky Galore, where he's wonderfully funny. And then see a film like The Kidnappers.
Don't eat it, Granddaddy, please, please don't eat it.
In The Kidnappers, he is this sort of doer Scot.
Harry and me want a dog.
What do you want a dog for? A dog is no use. You can't eat a dog.
This stereotype of us being, frankly, a bunch of mean bastards. I mean, where does that even come from? You can take my freedom, but you can't take my tea cake. Like, seriously, don't even think of unwrapping that.
If you've done with that bit of porridge, you could just take a sup of it myself.
I don't understand the mean Scottish thing or not. I really don't, because Scottish people are the most generous.
What you taking off your boots for, Granddaddy?
For thrift.
It's come from thriftiness, obviously. You know, of having to be thrifty.
Good night to you, Davy.
Will you leave me no candle?
Did nobody ever tell you that a candle costs money?
Working class Scottish people are ludicrously generous, but we've had that stereotype imposed on us. I don't know why. It's as if we all come from Aberdeen.
All I want is someone to guide me to the mainland. Oh, that'll cost you 2 shillings. Altogether, it'll cost you 5 shillings. You said 2 shillings. Now, well, find your own way then, Manny.
When they're not being all dour and repressed, Scots like to mix it up by indulging in a bit of the old pagan celebration and ritual sacrifice.
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
As usual, we can partly blame an Englishman for this stereotype. Shakespeare's Macbeth portrayed Scotland as a place stalked by witches urging on murderous acts.
Tell me, thou unknown power.
The story has been filmed by Roman Polanski. And most recently in a visually stunning version starring Michael Fassbender.
Is this a dagger which I see before me?
In the 1970s classic The Wicker Man, a policeman is sent to investigate a community on a remote Hebridean island, only to find a strange, free-loving cult led by Christopher Lee. The policeman's strict moral code is put to the test by Britt Ekland doing an erotic voodoo dance.
It is time to keep your appointment with the Wicker Man.
You are about to commit murder.
I'm pretty sure this never happened to Taggart. According to this image of the Scots, we're all living on the dark side of the toon.
You goddamned evil Mr. Jocks.
But when it comes to a metaphor for the darkness that all of us Scots have lurking in the deep, well, it's hard to beat perhaps the most famous Scot of them all.
Boys! Boys! I've seen it!
This is Secret of the Loch, the first film based on the Nessie story, featuring steampunk technology and a frankly bored-looking monster, played by an iguana. Right, on the bus. Surely these stereotypes contradict each other. I mean, how could we be pagan and Presbyterian, glorious fighters who always seem to get beaten? It seems like we're a harmony of opposites, but without the harmony. And who are you anyway? I'm your Scottish disgustive subconscious. Possibly a bit too high concept for your programme, but please carry on. Thanks. At least we're consistent in our inconsistency. In Sunset Song, Chris Guthrie struggles with her own split personality, torn between love of the land and her ambitions to become a teacher.
Two Chris's there were that fought for her heart.
The story recently got a big screen remake, having previously been adapted as a television series.
She represents Scotland insofar as that there are, in fact, two Chris Guthries, the English Chris and the Scottish Chris. And there's always a certain amount of struggle between the two.
Long after all our little vexings are dead and gone, the wind will come sailing over the Grampians, and the land will still be here.
One famous East Coast icon did fulfill her ambitions to become a teacher, and in some style. Created by Muriel Spark and brought to life on screen by Maggie Smith. Well, it's hard to think of Edinburgh without thinking of Miss Jean Brodie.
You girls are my vocation. If I were to receive a proposal of marriage tomorrow from the Lord Lion, King of Arms, I would decline it. I am dedicated to you in my prime.
Such a strong, strong character that includes a lot of elements of Scottishness. Doer with a twinkle in the eye, very brisk and very in control and no nonsense.
That would not be education, but intrusion. From the root prefix in, meaning in, and the stem true, do I thrust, ergo to thrust a lot of information into a pupil's head.
She was a force to be reckoned with, and there is many women like that in Scotland who would terrify you and terrify men and terrify anyone.
You little girls must be on the alert to recognise your prime at whatever time it may occur and live it to the full.
Another stock stereotype of the Scots is our status as a nation of engineers, which, to be fair, is warranted, as we did, after all, invent the entire modern world. Including that me magic bot you're watching, by the way. Set engines to opt.
I'm doing just fine.
The most important Scottish person on screen was Scotty from Star Trek. There is none more important, frankly, in history, and never will be.
You told me you could have this ship operational in 2 weeks. I gave you 3. What happened?
I think you gave me too much time, Captain.
Very well, Mr. Scott, carry that.
How many times do I have to tell you the right tool for the right job?
It was this strange thing which was other people's idea of us. Scotland was the land of engineers, and frankly, it was set in the future, and maybe that will be a Scottish accent. I mean...
Are you from the future? Yeah, he is. I'm not. Well, that's brilliant. Do they still have sandwiches there?
As well as sending a Scot into space, films have also given us the chance to extend our famously warm hospitality to extraterrestrial visitors.
Come on, Professor. I'll go too, my dear. You'll be spice, but better stay here.
1954's Devil Girl from Mars tells the story of an intimidating alien who arrives in Inverness Shire to bring back men to our planet. Because, obviously, if you are looking for prime physical specimens to replenish your population, there's no better place to look than Scotland.
You fools. Do you think you can hurt me with this? Even your limited intelligence will convince you by now that you cannot harm me.
We're just simple folk up against a strange power.
The 2013 film Under the Skin stars Scarlett Johansson on a similar mission, except her spaceship is cannily disguised as a transit van driving around Govan as she tries to entice random Glaswegian men who you suspect couldn't quite believe their luck.
You think I'm pretty?
Aye, they're gorgeous.
Do you?
Aye, definitely.
Scarlett Johansson's alien is without any sort of empathy at all, just simply a predator. Until that starts to change, and you like to think that it's her encounters with the people in Scotland that she's met that have changed that.
Yeah, lost.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for the M8.
Up to the roundabout.
Just go through the tunnel, it's the other side. How hard is it?
Are you going home?
Not
Your
to.
family?
It wasn't just spaceships that the Scots were experts at building, of course. In films of the 1950s, Glasgow was portrayed as a modern industrial city, the engine room of the British Empire. Or Sodom and Gomorrah, depending on your perspective.
Boys, folk have worked this farm honestly for 200 years. And now you're at him to leave it. For what? A Sodom and Gomorrah. A lot of noise and temptation.
Davy, there's a couple of smashers, eh?
In Flood Tide, Gordon Jackson's character leaves the farm and heads off to the city to make it as a shipbuilder.
You fancy your chance with that, Lloyd? If you like.
Through hard work, he quickly rises up the ranks and even snags the boss's daughter. But a dalliance with an old flame, bad girl Judy, threatens to ruin it all.
Mary.
David, you must come down to the yard at once.
Who says so?
Quiet, what is it, Mary?
Your ship's in danger. There is...
Who in hell do you think you are, busting into...
Judy!
Blasted stick-up snob!
I'll make it down for you.
Calvin and Clarkson.
See what happens when you have fun, Davy. Bad things happen.
By the 1970s, the pictures of urban life were changing with the times, becoming much less sentimental and often brutally realistic.
That's Donkey McCafferty. All right, then, back the way we came. You don't go back.
We started to see another character begin to reoccur on screen. The Glasgow hard man. Yeah,
McCafferty! You're teasing!
Come ahead, McQuillan.
See life as it was lived for most Scots in the...
I'm gonna damage you.
The Big Man, based on the book by William McIlvanney, tells the story of a former miner lured into the world of illegal bare-knuckle boxing. Having experienced perhaps the most degrading humiliation possible for any Scottish man. Having your wife stolen by Hugh Grant.
In my own career, I found over the years that I kept getting offered a lot of, well, shall we say, hard men.
Come on, finish it up!
Get your aim. And finish your drink. I'm not going to tell you again.
And I really enjoyed playing hard men, to be honest with you, because it also gave me a bit of a buzz knowing that I was making a damn good living out of all the guys who were like thugs and bullies who made my life a bloody misery when I was a boy. I was channeling them and using them. Thank you very much. Ka-ching.
Are you going to give me trouble? Trouble, you bad bastard! No! Finish your drinks, please! That's time!
But few of these hard men were as intimidating as Emma Thompson's character in The Legend of Barney Thompson.
Seeing as you're here, you can give me a lift or a bars. It's my bingo night.
No, I'm sorry, Mum. I can't. I'm actually quite busy.
You maybe didn't hear me. It's my bingo night at the bars.
She was grotesque. Absolutely fabulous. Fantastic. And in a sense, you know, there's a sort of cliched Glasgow woman in a way, but when you play her to the hilt like that, it was just hysterical.
Yeah, get up! Look at you, big bubbly bairn. You make me sick. Be a man for once, will you? Oh, Mummy. Oh, Mummy, be one present. Mummy, what can be? Be one gato, Mummy.
It's not always easy being a Ouija in the movies, especially when you're a kid. Small Faces tells the story of Lex and his brothers as they try to negotiate being teenagers in the Glasgow ganglands of the 1960s.
How old are you, son?
13.
You? 16.
You're awful wee for 16, girls.
I smoke a lot.
Lynn Ramsay's film Ratcatcher also paints a harsh but beautiful depiction of a Glasgow childhood.
Ratcatcher. That was, for me, you know, a really kind of major film. You just saw emerging a lot more really confident filmmakers telling their stories. I suppose it's personal for me because of my background. My family came from Parkhead and moved to Easterhouse, and the journey the wee guy goes in the bus out to the new scheme. And he looks out the window and he sees the field. It's sad, it's so beautiful.
So have these hard-bitten kitchen sink dramas become a new sort of Scottish stereotype?
I hear more people complaining about Scotland being depicted as run down, another gritty drama from Scotland, and I find that sad.
You're right.
Just because things are real life doesn't necessarily make them bleak and depressing and grim. Well, that's tough because that's the way a lot of people live.
The energy of Glasgow and its people has drawn director Ken Loach and screenwriter Paul Laverty to make 5 films set in the area.
Sacrilege, man.
What? The Brazilians? They were born to play in that strip.
Sacrilege.
The most successful Scottish films for me are when they get the balance right between the grittiness and the reality and the fun and the energy of being working class.
I am a Glaswegian, Pakistani, teenager woman of Muslim descent, who supports Glasgow Rangers in a Catholic school, because I'm a dazzling mixture and I'm proud of it.
In 1996, one film would harness that working class energy and turn it into one of the most iconic Scottish films ever made. Imagined as an extreme version of an American teen movie, it nailed a needle-shaped stake through the perceptions of Scots being a bunch of tartan-wearing shortbread munchers.
Doesn't it make you proud to be Scottish?
It's shite being Scottish! We're the lowest of the low! The most wretched, miserable, servile, pathetic trash that was ever shot into civilization. Some people hate the English, I don't. They're just wankers. We, on the other hand, are colonised by wankers. Can't even find a decent culture to be colonised by.
I can't really overestimate the impact of train spotting in my generation. And what was strange about that was it came a year after Braveheart, which was also massive. One was sort of stately, and the other was this punk stoating about. And the language was ours.
Like, people get all hung up on details. Like, which school did I go to? How many O grades did I get? Could be like 6, could be none. It's not important. What is important is that I am, yes?
The story of urban heroin addict seems as far away as possible from whiskey-soused country folk. Or is it?
There's a lot of substance abuse in Scottish cinema. By train spotting, the whole country seems to have graduated onto heroin. It is very much an escape from reality. I think there's definitely an argument that can be made to say that train spotting is Kailyard with club beats. Whisky Galore becomes heroin galore. And again, we see incredibly unscrupulous, wild, wily, unruly locals who refuse to respect the rules by which the game of modern life is played.
A comparison that didn't go unnoticed by the writers of The Fast Show in their Heroin Galore sketch. So how have the Scots been depicted on screen when it comes to romance? Full of quirky humour, Gregory's Girl is a teenage coming-of-age story that portrays the girls as being vastly wiser than the hapless boys.
Well, I feel like a human being again.
Look, I've got to go home. I really enjoyed the walk. You go that way, right, and I'll go this way. See you.
It was like, oh, I could know these people. These people could live on my street.
Don't be stupid. Come on, you're worse than my dad, and he's old. At least he's getting an excuse for being a prick.
Do you know that when you sneeze, it comes out your nose at 100 miles an hour? It's a well-known fact. 100 miles an hour. Just like that.
I don't think there has been a single week in my life that has gone by without somebody quoting me a line from Gregory's Girl, talking to me about it. And I didn't actually see the film in its entirety till last year, and I understood why people loved it. I loved it.
I'll start it off, and you just join in when you feel confident enough.
OK.
I think it's a universal story of what it's like to be young and not quite know what the rules are.
When it comes to on-screen romance, it's clear that Scottish women often don't have it easy. Another Time, Another Place tells the story of a young woman on the Black Isle in the 1940s. She falls in love with an Italian prisoner of war who makes her farmer husband look very, well, Scottish in comparison.
What sort of time of night is this to be coming back, anyway?
I'm sorry, Dougal. I'm sorry.
Ugh.
Scottish men do kind of get a bit of a rap as not being as in touch with their feelings. And, of course, Italian men, French men, Spanish men, they've got this language of love that some Scottish men seem to not have.
Bella.
But there was one role model who suggested that this was surely some kind of mistake. Shango Shashe Shapa. Charlie Sean.
I must be dreaming. Sean. I'm delighted to be here. To discover as well that his real name was Tam.
What's your name?
James. What a hero he became. And everybody started to do that accent, but which then Irvin then picked up on and really used strongly for Sick Boy, thinking in a Sean Connery accent.
Do you see the beast? Have you got it in your shikes?
Greetings. I am Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez.
Some people talk about Connery's Bond, and that doesn't really mean very much to me, to be quite honest. But Connery and Highlander, cool as, man. Cool as. There can be only one.
Let yourself feel the stack. His heart beating. His blood coursing. Feel? Come on! McLeod, come on!
And as for the Scots not being emotional, Legion, gentlemen, I give you Scottish men crying. I'm all right.
I'm no crying like a bairn, I'm falling like a hero.
My heart was broken. My heart was broken. Sorrow. I can't take it.
What can I do? For Christ's sake, shut up.
There's one thing that cannot be denied. When it comes to humour with an edge, nobody does it better than us.
There is an extreme darkness to the Scottish sense of humour.
Heed! Paper, now! Move that melon of yours and get the paper if you can. Hauling that gargantuan cranium about. I'm not kidding, that boy's head's like Sputnik.
It's not bleak. As long as you're making fun, it's not an insult.
Well, that was offside, wasn't it? He'll be crying himself to sleep tonight on his huge pillow.
What can you say about orphans?
I think you'll find she's too heavy.
She ain't heavy. She's my mother. Well, we were filming. It wasn't funny. But when I saw it, Jesus Christ. It's so darkly hilarious.
Of course, there is one Scottish film stereotype that is guaranteed to get us doing a song and a dance.
Orders, please.
Ah, yes, the Ceilidh. There always has to be a Ceilidh. Other forms of dance are available. I'm quite partial to the slosh myself. According to the film, well, us Scots like nothing more than a bit of swinging.
Come on, lassie, we'll show them. Come on.
It has this ability to completely destroy any inhibitions that you have.
If a man doesn't wear the kilt, I don't call it dancing.
Give us hard men and Ceilidhs, that's what I see.
Go! It is. Aye. I'm dancing all right. Come on.
That is the stereotype of us, but it's the one that we should be most proud of. The New Year really does personify everything that's great about us.
I have no doubt, Duncan, you have composed a suitable verse in honor of this great occasion.
Oh, no, Father.
Come on, Duncan, boy, let them have it. Hey, come on. Here, Duncan.
Come on, man.
A nation can only survive as an idea through culture. All of these films that we've been talking about, and the sum of that is Scotland.
Kind friends and companions, come join me in rhyme and lift up your voices in chorus with mine. Let's drink and be merry, all grief to refrain, for we may or may never all meet here again.
Who's like us? We're complex, a beautiful mess of contradictions. Stereotypes? Best enjoy when we're laughing at them. But hey, if the kilt fits, why not wear it?